Welcome to Fire Your Doctor, episode 4, with my wife, Dr. Danielle Lockwood.
And my husband, Richard Lockwood.
Hi there.
Hi.
This is actually a reshoot, so we're gonna get through this. We had technology issues, and maybe this is the episode that the devil doesn't want you to see. But
yeah, there you go.
Oh wait, are you actually? Wow.
I know. Look at that.
I also like to live dangerously. She has this camera tripod balanced on 2 legs, and she's kind of moving it with her foot. And I was like, oh, all right, whatever. Let's get into it. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about acid reflux. It's a continuing conversation from last time, but we're actually getting into the stress and the spirituality related to acid reflux, which you wouldn't think that those things would go with it. But
okay.
They absolutely do. So we're going to get into it. So first off, most people think that their stomach pain is 100% physical. They'll come in and they say, well, I make too much stomach acid, as we talked about last time, or I have this pain from, eating something bad and I've never been right since. But oftentimes, especially with the stomach, it's important to address the emotions.
Yeah. It's almost like compartmentalizing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to move all of this kind of unpleasant feelings all the way over into nothing but physical. If I just find the right supplement, the right prescription, the right kind of diet, the problem goes away.
If only it were that easy.
Oh.
Ding.
Well, that's a bummer.
So I'm going to get into the quote of the book, and then we're going to try to bring that full circle into how that is related. So this is from our new book, Fire Your Doctor, which we have actual hard copies of.
That I have marked up with a ton of ninja edits that I'm going to be doing forthwith because I'm very self-conscious about typos.
Exactly. So let's get into it. So this is actually from page 23 in the book. A relationship with God provides a moral foundation to stabilize our psyches. As life's seasons change from the pride of victory to the shame of defeat, faith and religion have been a constant force for an entire history of humanity. Go dig up the bones of cultures lost to antiquity, and you'll find the religious artifacts of spiritually connected people. In recent years, we've abandoned faith and replaced it with cell phones, satellites, and central air. Great alliteration. I love that.
Give me an opportunity to put alliteration in a piece of... Continue.
Despite these modern luxuries, our society is spiritually homeless. In this brave new world, the idea of God might seem like foolish superstition best left in yesteryear. However, I argue that even if your logical mind has moved past faith in God, thousands of years of our ancestry found spiritual understanding to be absolutely necessary. The 20th century was humanity's first foray into a truly atheistic culture. Communism under Stalin and fascism under Hitler were first 2 tests of atheism. Both failed horribly. The current obsession with so-called social justice is the latest attempt to fill the God-shaped hole in society. So far, social justice seems to be bringing division and judgment when what we truly need is healing and forgiveness. Nietzsche famously said that God is dead. Seeing today's world, I think we need a resurrection.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, that's a really interesting shift that we've seen in society that, every culture throughout human history had some kind of relationship, a spiritual understanding of the world. And in the 20th century, we started this new idea where we could create this government or this social structure or this just kind of way of being. We could get rid of all these human oppressors, and then all of a sudden we would just kind of move into this, or get rid of the people that we don't like, and all of a sudden that this government and this social structure without the people that we don't like, without the systems that we don't like, that we'll kind of move into this new era of just universal happiness and prosperity, where all the good people win and all the bad people are, have been dealt with. And I think it's left us emptier than ever.
I agree.
Cool.
So what does that have to do with stomach acid? You're like, what? What is that? What's the connection between that?
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to answer?
Yeah. Why don't you answer?
Okay. We have nowhere to put our negative emotions and our negative feelings that's either outside of ourselves or outside of other people. So it's like, at that point, I have a choice of either I eat my feelings, I swallow my feelings, I consume substances to regulate my feelings, or maybe I negative pattern, but maybe I try to put my feelings onto you, or I project them, or I this or that, rationalize them. But ultimately, there's nowhere to put it.
Yes. I ran into this. I've dealt hugely with anxiety throughout my life. And before I became Christian, I would do yoga and I would do meditation, and I would feel really good doing those things. And then when I wasn't doing those things, I would go right back to my anxiety self. So it was just this never-ending hole that had to continually have something put in it in order to feel stable. I love this quote from the book. It says, quote, "Dr. Danny, I've already downloaded a meditation app I never use. Is there anything else I can try?" You see our humor in here. "I could write an entire book on managing stress, but for now, let's keep it simple. Get outside, move your body, and get right with God. We can't fight our biology. Humans need time in nature combined with physical activity." End quote.
I like that.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's like, we know what's good for our dog, but we don't know what's good for ourselves. And it's like we just can't live this lifestyle where we never take ourselves on walks.
Yes, absolutely. So I practice something, you'll learn about it in the book, called neuro-emotional technique, NET.
Right.
And it's a great system because it helps to identify in your nervous system in real time what stress is being stored in the body. And the stomach is a very interesting one because it's connected. When you look at the systems and how they're connected to each other through applied kinesiology, it's connected to large muscles in your neck, and it's connected to the brain, and it's connected to the sinuses. And so it really does affect a lot of the body. And the emotion that's related to it is an emotion called oversympathetic, which means hypersympathetic state, which means stuck in fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you cannot heal, as we talked about last time, unless you are in rest and digest. And you cannot digest your food unless you are in rest and digest.
Yeah. So if you spent time around maybe a combat veteran, somebody that's been a first responder, police officer, something like that, emergency medical personnel, you might have experienced or heard stories about what happens when people hit those extreme levels of stress. What is that?
Evacuation.
Is that where everybody gets out of the building?
No, it's where things just start coming out of your body involuntarily.
Oh, from where?
All orifices.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that just really helps point out just how tied our emotional state is to our digestion, to the point that in an extreme, like, if you're having to save people out of a burning building, a fire, your digestion is going to completely shut down, and just everything on the top half is going out the top. Everything on the bottom half is going out the bottom.
Yeah.
And that really just points out, but how does that show up in what we'd call, like, I don't know, subclinical or subacute, not acute, but
yeah, more commonly we're going to see that as people don't even sense that they're hungry. They're so involved in their work or their worry or their stress that they just forget to eat.
Okay.
They just forget to eat. They're so occupied. We'll see this in high performing individuals, like surgeons and CEOs, and
Yeah.
people who work a lot.
Yeah. Now, sometimes that picture can also go with really slow metabolism. Why is that?
Well, because they don't go into rest and digest, therefore they're not putting proper stomach acid in, and then that slows down the motility in their gut, so the movement in their gut.
That's how fast you digest the food.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is a re-recording, so we've already covered all this, but we had camera issues, and so we're redoing it. So I've got to think about what we haven't talked about in this new, more beautiful future that we're in.
Yeah. Well, I think what that goes into, again, it's just these subtle ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about stomach acid misfiring as an underproduction of stomach acid, like we talked about from the first. We talk about it like, well, my body just went haywire and all of a sudden overproduces stomach acid. I guess I just need antacids.
Right.
I just need to block my acid.
Right. So it's like I ate a meal 6 hours ago. Now I'm feeling bloated. I'm feeling all this stuff, maybe starting to feel gassy. And I also have this sensation of acid burning in my throat. So I'm like,
sometimes it just feels hard to swallow, or it feels just kind of, food can kind of get stuck, or it's just stuck.
Okay. And then, but my sensation, my physical sensation is my throat's burning. I've got too much stomach acid.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically, I take an antacid and I get roasted on this podcast. No. What am I doing wrong?
Well, by taking the antacid.
Yeah, hypothetically.
You're actually making the situation worse, because you're stopping the body's, you're telling the body you don't want it to make acid, and acid is important to break down your food. And you're also taking an antacid on an empty stomach where there's really nothing in there. And so you're doing a lot of things wrong.
Okay, so like, where do we begin?
Like where do we
this
even
entire question is terrible. No, I apologize. I think where I was going is, and this would go for all of the emotional kind and spiritual factors that we talked about before, but there's this way that taking an antacid could be related to not dealing with something, or kind of like running from a problem, or trying to like suppress a problem rather than face it. And so what we had talked about was this pattern of feeling the indigestion, then feeling the high stomach acid, and like, I need to get rid of that stomach acid. But the actual solution for many of our patients is to lean into the stomach acid. And when I do eat a meal, I am immediately at the same time taking an HCl, so kind of a hydrochloric acid supplement, essentially, to increase the amount of stomach acid. And then that's how is that going to help me?
Well, that's going to start to train your body to release the stomach acid when it's supposed to be released, which is when there's food present, so that then the food gets broken down. The stomach acid is also a signaling agent for what I talked about last time, which is it creates that symphony of digestion. So if you have the stomach acid goes, then that tells the pancreas to release the digestive enzymes, which tells the gallbladder to release the bile to break down the fat, right? So all of those things happen when the stomach releases reaches a certain pH, which is usually an acidic pH, to help the body go, oh, now it's time to digest food.
Okay. Let's talk about emotional eating and how there's this kind of interplay between physical state and emotional state, and that those can kind of go back and forth.
Absolutely. So why do people emotionally eat? They typically emotionally eat because they're stressed and they want comfort, or they're bored and they want to feel something. And typically eating will give us a feeling of fullness, right? It'll satiate in some ways. If it's something sweet, or, even if it's just something nostalgic or good, it gives you that dopamine hit that feels just so good and comfortable, like a warm hug. However, it's going to usually stress your body out on the other side. It's the same thing with alcohol. Alcohol might help you relax and get into a state of relaxation, but it's going to then spike your blood sugar, spike your cortisol levels, make you more stressed on the other side of it. So you're paying from a savings account that's already empty.
Right. Okay. I'm going to try to get this idea out, and then I want you to relate that back to, say, like NET that we were talking about briefly earlier.
Okay.
So there's this way that, okay, suppose, for example, I'm feeling insecure or nervous about something. I might be able to get myself into a more confident mind space by getting my posture into more of a confident posture. And that I could kind of influence my emotional state by my physical state. Whereas like also if I'm feeling really anxious, my posture might start to close up, my shoulders might raise up, I might start leaning forward, kind of get small, kind of be like a little turtle rather than like a big, whatever, silverback gorilla, in terms of my physical space and how I'm filling up the room. So I think there's a relation with this stress response. If I've been in this high stress kind of thing, dealing with modern world stresses that are vague. So, traffic, stress at work, politics that I don't agree with, just all of these things. That's not like a tiger that's just kind of here and then it's defeated or it moved on. Those are ongoing. And so I think that people get into this pattern of being stuck in that high stress, high fight or flight response, and then using food to force their body out of that into rest and digest.
Yes. And I would say the other piece of it is if they've been that stressed and then they haven't eaten or they've skipped meals or they've done whatever they're going to do, they have also dropped their blood sugar down. And so now you're not going to crave something like protein. You're going to crave the quickest thing that is going to bring your blood sugar up.
Okay.
So you're going to automatically crave excuse the phrase, crap food. Crap is actually,
I don't even know.
It's an acronym in school. So it's like coffee and all the things that cause acid reflux, and sugar and carbs and things like that. And so we're going to see you eating those foods, but then they're going to hyper ferment. They're going to like create little bubbles because you don't have enough stomach acid to digest them. And then they're going to cause that bloating. And then the bloating on a physical level also is a signal to your body that you're full. So you could actually have enough food or not enough food, and you've created all this gas from this fermented carbs that you've eaten, and you're really not full because you haven't had enough healthy nutrients, but your body has the physical extension of the stomach is a signal for the body to stop making stomach acid because it's going to, we're out of the stomach now, we need to digest, we're full. And so that will actually shut it down. It's just being bloated will start to misfire the stomach acid as well. So there's that physical too. Okay.
I think when you're talking fight or flight, everybody thinks of adrenaline. And in a lot of cases, adrenaline could be like, seeing somebody that you're attracted to, driving a fast car, like, let's go skiing or snowboarding, or, it's kind of cool. It's exciting. What we talk about less is I would say like, so if adrenaline is the high, cortisol would be the hangover. So can you say a little bit about that? I know we'll deal with cortisol a lot later in the...
A little bit, right? Because you do need cortisol to survive.
Right.
But we need it to be raised in the morning so that we have the energy to go on. But some people are raising it really high.
Right.
Because their adrenaline is dominating.
Okay.
And typically when that's happening, it's robbing the body of other hormones like pregnenolone and progesterone and testosterone, right? And so it's going to start robbing, again, from a savings account that's already empty.
Right.
And the cortisol then needs the body to make what's called cortisone in order to combat how inflammatory it is.
Right.
Right.
So let's talk about just on a bumper sticker. What is, so cortisol would be the hormone that helps your body recover from stress.
Yes.
What are some signs of too much cortisol?
inflammation, wired but tired, where you're just like, I need to go to sleep, but I can't go to sleep at nighttime.
What type of physical things? There's patterns of weight gain.
Weight gains.
Where at?
Stomach. In the stomach and in the back.
Yeah, you'll see the kind of the hump
back.
The hump on your shoulders.
Yeah,
and
it'll start kind of coming back in this area.
Yeah, really thin arms. You'll lose like muscle mass on your arms and on your legs. So really, did you ever see the movie Despicable Me? That is a stressed out man. Like really kind of barrel. Yeah, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
I just remember the horrible minions, and that's why I'm stressed out, because I don't like them. Wow. No, but really distended kind of stomach, big stomach, really skinny arms, skinny legs. But it's that kind of, I'm going to recover, I'm going to retain energy, I'm going to store up fat because I have no idea when the next emergency is. I'm not going to be big and out there in my life, so my arms are just kind of atrophied, my legs are atrophied.
Yeah.
And then, of course, an inflammation picture, because if you just got in a fight or flight, now I need that inflammation to go in and start repairing those tissues.
Yeah. So the emotional eating can kind of create that negative feedback loop where you're just in that cycle. So it's like, I'm stressed because I eat, and I eat because I'm stressed. Yeah,
actually. No, that's something that's really fascinating. Can you tell me about the hormonal picture of what imbalanced stomach acid is?
I think it's kind of just what I said, which is that you'll start to see the cortisol will go high. Eventually it will go low. You could actually burn yourself out so hard that you can't even make enough cortisol. Right. Okay. And when that happens, we'll usually see, then it will start to affect the sex hormones. So we'll see low testosterone, low estrogen, or actually more estrogen dominance, and then it just falls off a cliff. Progesterone, you'll lower something called DHEA, which helps to quell our adrenals. It's made in our adrenals and helps with our energy levels.
I'm assuming thyroid's just like completely
Thyroid is starting to be a mess.
Yeah.
Like we'll start to see that. So the stomach acid issue is just kind of one of those early warning signs of something really emotionally stressful going on, which then can physically manifest, right? So it started, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. Maybe it started with an emotional incident, a loss, a car accident, something that happened where you're like, I can't even eat, I'm so upset. Right. And then you're eating because you're so upset, but you don't have enough stomach acid to deal with it.
Yeah. It seems like the emotions, the stomach acid, and then this hormonal picture can be like a vicious circle that can develop where it's like, I'm stressed out, so I miss a meal. Then I kind of crash and I'm craving kind of sweets. I'm emotionally burnt out because I had a hard day. I eat these types of foods that aren't going to be long-term good for me, but they kind of prop me up a little bit. And then my digestion's off because, as if we're low in stomach acid and we're getting this indigestion, then we're going to be short on a lot of our just essential vitamins, nutrients, etc. Even if we're eating those things, they're not going to be digested. And so then that's going to create a hormonal picture that leads to these like imbalanced mood, low energy, or too much energy when you don't need it, and agitation, and just kind of everything wrong that we see. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have really good case studies in the book on this, actually.
Okay. Do you want to do one?
There's one. No, I don't. But I would say one of the things that one more aspect I'd like to talk to, which is your posture chooses you. Your posture chooses you. You don't choose your posture. It's not like you can consciously override and do that. Like you could do that, but eventually like you're going to go back into the position that's the most comfortable for you based on what is internally going on in the body. I'm going to give you an example of that. So we talked about a incident maybe triggering a disease, right? For example, a car accident where they might have had whiplash. Well, they might have, recovered somewhat physically from the whiplash, but the nervous system never got the memo that they aren't in a trauma anymore.
Okay.
And so pretty much every time the person gets into a car to drive, the body, the nervous system is like a computer. It goes right back to the time. Remember that time when we got in a car accident? That was terrible. I hope that doesn't happen again. Right?
Yeah.
That is what the body does until it's told not to. So that has to do with closing the loop on the stress cycle.
Okay.
Okay. And here's the deal. Most of the time, that has to be done through the physical body. It cannot be logically processed. It must be done through the physical body.
Right. So what you're talking about is, like, sometimes in psychology, I've heard the term like a rig. So it's a representation that's been internalized and now it's generalized.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my high school crush broke up with me when we were sitting in the car together. And now whenever I'm sitting in the car with my wife 20 years later, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Where this
Spaghetti factory.
Either, yeah, right. Where there's these spatial things or these situational things that I would come into in my life that are tied to these like terrible emotions is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so then you have a process to kind of like start basically getting the body in such a way that it's going to start breaking apart that connection between either this physical posture or this physical state and this emotional trauma state.
Totally. So what would it look like if their stomach reflex was turned off? Well, they'd be high shoulders, hunched over, kind of inward like this, chronically like doing this kind of number, like, oh, it's hurting. Like because their upper traps are like over firing. Their neck muscles might be like more like kind of prominent here, like your little ones, because the big ones are not firing because that whiplash is still in the nervous system.
Right.
So it is actually one of the first things that I look for on patients when they come in is if they have had a concussion or if they've had any kind of whiplash injury.
Right.
I must clear that first, because if they have that oversympathetic response in the body, that fight or flight, they cannot heal.
Right. So let's put this in a little bit of context. I mean, physically, if it's been 10 or 20 years, unless you like blew a disc in your back or something or whatever, you are going to be physically recovered from that car accident, but there is still this emotional kind of lingering kind of skeleton in the closet, because it was like, listen, I was just on the way. I was going to pick up the kids from school. I didn't even see it. And all of a sudden, boom, there's this guy. It sounds like an explosion and a truck just ran into the side of my car. Right?
Well, I would argue that a lot of times they aren't physically recovered from it.
Okay.
Because now they've got, flash forward a few months after that. Actually, that's when my stomach issues started. That's when I started having digestive issues. That's when this all started happening. That's when this happened, because they're in this chronic oversympathetic.
I mean, like physically healed. It's like I don't have like as long as I'm bleeding out of my arm. Yeah,
but your neck hasn't been the same, and you don't know why, even though you've gone to the chiropractor to have it adjusted multiple times. Like you get massaged all the time. Like it's wild.
Okay.
It's wild because it's still there.
Okay. But what you're doing is you're trying to break those things, those associations apart.
Find it and clear it.
Okay.
Find it and clear it.
Yeah. Is this getting into cell danger response at all? Or
No. That's something else. But again, there is not a patient who is a human. Okay, let's just say that. You have to be a human.
Do we have cats or what are we?
I don't know about for animals, because to go back to the case.
Okay.
When a deer is like running from a bear.
Yeah.
As soon as the deer's done running from the bear, it's not like he internalizes it and is like, oh, I don't understand how scary that was. They actually have a physical response that they'll go through where they start shaking animals to physically release the trauma that's been stuck in them. We don't do it.
Right.
We like freeze and go, no, I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm just going to go.
I'm fine.
Eat my feelings. We'll be good.
It'll be fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So
But even in your example there with that deer and the bear,
Mm-hmm.
the deer had a physical, tangible outcome.
100%. 100%.
So it's like, I was running for my life. The bear
Yeah.
couldn't catch me, which is, I mean, at least in itself, that is a positive reinforcing kind of thing of just like, I am faster than a bear.
Shaking off, and it's going to go eat food with its friends later on.
Yeah. Whereas like, I can't outrun rush hour.
Correct. And so, and we don't, and we also like bears and deers and animals, they don't like future trip. They're not like worried about, well, I wonder if the next time I'm in the forest. It's like they have their instincts of it, but they're not in this hyper vigilant state like we are as humans.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're going to talk about that more in the emotions chapter for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So
let's see.
I think that really covers it, but I
going?
want to come full circle to why. So then why did we talk about like fascism and bringing God in, and, you know, what's the point? You know, why would we do that? What's the point? So why, the question I'm going to ask you is, why does spiritual understanding lead to emotional resilience?
In the absence of something bigger than yourself, like a higher power, a higher spiritual power, in the absence of God, I would argue that either something in your life becomes God or you become God. And both of those things are going to lead you. Like if you're God in your own mind, you're going to go through life making everybody else miserable, and you're going to be miserable to the extent that your will is not completely followed by everything and everyone in your world. Like if there's nothing bigger than me, then it's like the happiness of my life is dependent on how much everyone else and everything in life is going on my program. And it's like, people don't agree with my politics. People don't this, other people don't act in a way that I would want them to. And so if we have that place where, hey, there is this God up there, and I'm just going to tell him, how I feel. I'm going to be very frank with that. And like, hey, this person died. This person left me. This business, I just had it in my heart to just create this business, and I failed. And if I don't have that place to put that, then I become that God that failed. And then that's a terrible weight. And so either it's just time to flood the earth, because nothing's doing what I want.
So to put it in a bumper sticker, if you don't have a God, you will become the God, or you will put it on somebody else to deal with it for you.
Yeah, you could worship somebody else.
Yes, or something else like money or drugs
create
or
alcohol
or work,
or government. If we just had communism, or we just had this utopian society, if all the bad people were just got rid of, and then we only had the good people, then the world would be perfect.
Yeah.
And so, I think the human condition needs something bigger.
Yeah. And then I think just part of specifically Christian belief is that through the fire is where you gain wisdom and understanding.
Yeah, that's one of those myths that people have. It's just kind of God and suffering, and very rarely, if you actually read the Bible, God delivers, but it's as in God will save you from trouble, but it's not the kind of saving that we might prefer, where it's just nothing bad ever happens. It's the Bible is full of bad things happening, and then people having that hard choice of am I going to keep my faith? Am I going to do the right thing even if it kills me? And some of the people in the Bible ended up dying for what they believed in. Some of the people had miraculous saving. The faith is that, win, lose, or draw, when I go through that fire, there is that, that somewhere God's watching.
That he's with you and he's walking you. I love there's a song called Fourth Man in the Fire. And it's talking about the book of Daniel when they were thrown into the furnace, the
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
And how there was this fourth man in the fire. And who was that? And it was God. And God was like, hey, you're still going to be thrown into the fire. That's still going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be there for you to walk out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately,
and to your point,
comforting.
Yeah, it's so comforting.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that belief, you're going to then just project that onto the closest thing near you, your kids, your dog, your husband, your wife, society, government. What's the next closest? Your job, the boss.
But then you lose that job. Your guy or girl doesn't win that election, and then your entire world is like ruined.
Yeah.
And so I'm externalizing. And so I think there also just needs to be a sounding board for everybody. I need that, where it's like, and I think that people also have that thing of just like, I can't tell God how I really feel, so I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I would even argue, just tell that to God. I don't think you're real. And if you are real, I think you're a monster. Why did my brother die?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is for you, and just have that real conversation, and even just try to express that, and just ask him to show up and help you understand and help you just really see and help you move through it.
Yeah.
So
it's been incredible for us, for surviving trauma, for moving forward. I'm not saying I'm anxiety free 100% of the life of my time, but I'll tell you, I am more free from anxiety than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah. When you look at any of the addiction recovery programs, or maybe not, I don't want to say any, but the most popular ones are, you've got to have some kind of a supreme being, a higher power, aka you've got to have a God. And then, the kind of like the prayer of recovery is, God, give me the wisdom to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to be able to tell the difference. Yeah. And so I think that's really just kind of the human condition right there in a nutshell. And it's just like, there's some things that I can't change that I am just burning energy on. There's things that I can change that maybe I'm not changing because it's scary. And how do I even know where I'm putting that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And if you can do some of those things, you might have beautifully functioning stomach acid.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the temptation, is just to like, it's almost like this exporting, of just like, I'm going to export all of this stress. Oh, it's doing it. The camera, speaking of stress, I cannot control this camera the way I want to. All right. Should we just wrap?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.